years now, and so when I joined the team, we were 45. Now Hubspot is over 1,600 employees, so very proud to have had the opportunity to be a part of that. And what I want to do with you all today is talk to you about some of the strategies that we use on both the marketing and sales side to help support our growth. Growth is really the theme that I want to discuss with you all today. I imagine who's hoping to grow their companies? Is that a goal of anyone here? Yeah? Well, I think everyone has that goal, absolutely. So I want to talk about the marketing and the sales side. And for the B2B folks in the room, this is really going to be helpful for you. I come from the B2B side, so a lot of these strategies, while applicable to many different facets, is going to be especially important for B2B. So the way I want to do this is to reverse engineer growth for a bit and talk about the different steps that might exist in a marketing and sales process and how they might come together to achieve growth. So what do we need to do? Well, first, to move backwards, we're going to need to overachieve on our revenue targets. Makes sense? How do we do that? Well, our sales team probably needs to get at least 100% of quota or exceed that in order to get that overachievement on revenue. In order to do that, we're going to need to drive really strong sales follow-up. And this is going to be a pass between marketing and sales. So marketing really thinking about how can we give the best information, the best possible data to sales. Sales really thinking about how can I be quick, timely, and effective in those conversations. And well, if sales is going to be following up leads, marketing should probably deliver those. So how can marketing support a strong SLA in getting the leads that we need to our sales team? And then of course, in today's day and age, so much is living on the web. How can we drive visitors, new people discovering our companies, our products and services for the first time, and doing that via our website? And what's really interesting with this is we're seeing a great partnership between the marketing side on the left for you and the sales side on the right. And what I really want to dig into is that great partnership. I believe 100% that companies that can really find a way to have a strong handoff, build processes that intertwine, and really think about giving each other feedback in order to have that strong alignment, they're going to be really, really successful. Who feels like they have good sales and marketing alignment today? Who's working on it? And there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, absolutely. We're all working on it all the time, and that's great. So I want to give you a carrot, something to look forward to as you hope to improve that sales and marketing alignment. Really interesting stat for you all. And that is those companies with strong marketing and sales alignment have about 20% growth year over year. Pretty exceptional. And so what's the other side of that coin? Those companies who do not might see about a 4% decrease. And the optimists in the room might say, hey, Rebecca, 4% ain't that bad. That's not too terrible. Sure, I like your optimism, but imagine that year over year. And imagine that happening when your competitors maybe do have that strong marketing and sales alignment and are receiving that 20% growth over time. That's going to really hit it. That's really going to hurt. So what Hubspot has done is built a system that works really well for us. We're also using to support our customers in regards to how they can create that alignment. And it's a process that looks like this. It's a beautifully designed wheel, if you will. And it starts with first determining what business growth means to you. Is it a certain revenue target you're hoping to achieve? Is it a certain volume of customers that you're hoping to achieve? What does that growth look like? What is that number? And then, what does marketing need to achieve and sales need to achieve in order to do that? So setting specific goals for each group, and ideally, those two groups decide that together, because it's really gonna go hand in hand. And then from there, you're going to create SLAs, or service level agreements, that help each group stay on track in understanding if we're getting there or not. I love SLAs. Anyone else love SLAs? Any other nerds in the room like me? We got a few nerds. We can all stick together. What I love about service level agreement reporting is it functions like a check engine light. So I'll make fun of the marketers, because I'm a marketer, I can make fun of myself. Let's say I have a monthly target I'm hoping to achieve. About midway through the month, I'm looking at my reporting and I'm noticing I'm not quite at the volume of leads that I'm hoping to achieve. That's a check engine light that says, hey, Rebecca, let's dig in. What's not working here? What's not performing as it should? And how can we fix it quickly to make sure we're supporting sales the way we want to? And similarly, sales will have an SLA in regards to the time to follow up, the quality of follow-up, etc. And it works in the wheel like that. Pretty great. in addition to the tactics that we're taking, there's also a really important mindset. And you guys all raised your hands in regards to knowing HubSpot. Thank you for that. And when I talk about what inbound marketing or inbound mindset means to me, I think of it like a customer-centric mindset prior to the point when someone's paying you money. So think of the best customer service people you know. They're so focused on delivering value, a great experience, really making sure you have that white glove approach to really help your customers. Can you deliver that same amazing experience prior to the point of someone becoming a customer? Can that same white glove touch happen in your marketing and sales process in regards to the value you're driving, the enjoyment of the experience? Yes, I'm talking about a world where people love being sold to. That's what we want to move toward, and that's really that inbound mindset. And so from here, what I'd like to do is break it out and talk a little bit about marketing's role in that, sales roles in that, and then go into talking about a few tactics in which they work together. Sound good?
Yeah.
You like it? Great. So, I want to begin with a short story and go in time to 1965. And in 1965, there was a company called Blue Ribbon Sports and a gentleman named Philip Knight, and he wanted to grow his company, like many of us do today. And the first thing that he needed to do was grow awareness for his company and really find his audience and introduce them to his company for the first time. And the way that he wanted to do this was a really customer-centric mindset. And what he decided to do is write these wonderful letters, remember 1965, go to fields in which athletes were playing their different sports, whatever it may have been at the time, and deliver these letters that really go into the value of taking care of yourself, doing sports well, the equipment needed to do it well, etc. And what was really interesting is he used a lot of the different writing techniques that we might use in creative copy today in this letter. And that was really, really successful in helping him introduce his company to new customers. So, question for you. Anyone know who this company ended up becoming? Ooh,
Nike.
Nike! Ah, nicely done. Thank you, everybody. So this became Nike, which is really phenomenal. And we really believe it was that customer-centric mindset with a creative way of distributing that content that really helped him be successful back in the day. And to give another example, he also created the pamphlet. It's like the 1965 version of the ebook or the guide. He created pamphlets that went into how to position your body correctly while running, while jogging, in order to make sure you have proper form is not to injure yourself while running. And he gave these out for free, whether you're a customer or you might be in the future. So really interesting, really customer-centric mindset. So let's go forward to 2016 to today. What does that look like? And I believe that this focus on being inbound is becoming even more crucial is because the way that we as buyers is also changing. So think of the ways that you consume information, you learn about products today. How many of you are using TV ads as your primary method of understanding what products you want to buy? I see no hands, I think. If you're buying these ads, I apologize. Your focus group just told you they're not effective. Also, in terms of email, if it's an unwanted email, someone who's not expecting your email, it's going to cause an unsubscribe. Same with direct mail or even just cold calling. And so these tried and true methods of marketing that we've used for decades and decades are becoming ineffective because it's not in a way that is valuable to the buyer. It is not customer-centric. And so what do? We need to understand that the buyer is in control and that at this point in time, 60% of the sales cycle has actually happened before someone gets on the phone with a sales rep. And that's really important for us to recognize because we can't fight that. We need to lean into it, acknowledge it, and figure out how we adapt. So if people are going to be using online channels, quite obviously, to do their discovery, to learn about what they want to buy, what they want for their companies, what they want as consumers, we really need to lean on that and make sure we're creating content that can then be discovered and is valuable to help support it. And so this is where that inbound versus outbound, for many of you, maybe if you've been heard before, comes into play. It's really encouraging businesses to have this inbound mindset, really focused on the buyer versus me as the seller. It's not about me. It's not about what I want you to do. It's not about what I want you to know, what I want you to hear. If If I start doing that, you're going to be bored and you're going to ignore me, as you should. However, if I create content online that's focused on what you want, what you find interesting, what you find beneficial, what is helpful to you, you're most likely going to consume that and maybe even one day become a customer of the company at hand. So what are some of the stats that really support these arguments? So we wanted to pull a few, and I want to really drill into the third one. And that's, not only is the strategy going to be more effective in regards to having a strong marketing approach, it's also going to help you save money over time. So we've actually found that on average, a company might save 18,000 euro in a regular budget by moving to this mindset. And it makes sense. A lot of those strategies that we showed on the slides, a few slides prior, were really expensive. So we're actually giving an invitation to stop doing those, or to some capacity, in order to focus on these strategies that might be more efficient. So from here, I want to dig in and talk about 3 of the different goals that a marketer might have, or 3 different challenges that a marketer might have, and the way that someone can approach that and some of the tactics that can be done in order to help achieve those different challenges, achieve those different goals. The first one is in regards to awareness. Who might say that they're hoping to increase the awareness for their company today? That's a goal of theirs. Yeah, a large percentage of us. Makes sense. So we say this lives at the top of the funnel. We love talking in funnels and marketing in Hubspot land. And the way we like to think about awareness as a strategy is a 2-part process in regards to content and distribution. Content is what you're sharing. It's the information, it's the value, it's what you're teaching, it's what you're helping. It's your blog articles, it's your video, it's all the different content types you heard today. And distribution is where you're posting it, where you're sharing it to help it get found naturally on its own. So when someone has a question and they're searching for an answer, there's a high chance that they might find your content. Makes sense. And we believe that each piece of content that you share is a new opportunity to get found. So one of the questions I've been asked pretty frequently as a writer for our blog, and for anyone who might follow any of our blogs or content channels, you might know that we're extremely prolific. We post constantly. And a great question I might get is, hey, Rebecca, is there a point in which that volume of content plateaus, in which it really doesn't matter anymore? You've hit a limit where you're not going to continue to get the returns that you might want to really justify that amount of content. So my answer is no. We continue to see growth in our traffic and our leads and everything as our content scales as well. And that's really, really interesting. And it's because the way I like to think about it, if you want to take a metaphor, is each content is a road to your website. Each content is a point of discovery. So the more content that exists, the more opportunities there are for a new individual to come find you. So go to town, go for it. And then you might say, okay, how long is it going to take? And I want to be honest. So this is a view of traffic that someone that's beginning an inbound marketing strategy might see. And most people give up around here. Why? Because it takes a lot of time. Content creation takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort. And I would say one thing to really think about is you might be giving up on this. It's a compound effect. So for example, a little fun fact, approximately 40 to 45% of the leads that HubSpot gets every month is not from content that we created in that month. It's from content we created sometimes years ago. You know what blows my mind? There's this one blog post I wrote, I think in 2013, that I still get retweets on. And I'm like, where are you finding this? And that's a piece of content I made years ago at this point, but it's still giving back to HubSpot. So it's going to take some time, but it will have that compounding effect. And if you're really sticking with it, you're going to see this growth where maybe your competitors might not. And that's the leverage that you're going to get over time. And so now that we're getting this awareness, I want to talk to the next step, which is conversions. And the conversion process is really essential, which changes it from an awareness strategy that means people know about you, but not necessarily in your sales cycle, to a point where you actually have a human in which you can do business with. So to level set what a conversion is, pretty straightforward. It's a point in which you can do a transaction and receive something of value in order for a little bit of personal information and an opportunity to maybe contact that person in the future. Has anyone ever downloaded either a free tool, downloaded an ebook, signed up for a webinar, whatever it might be? I would assume everyone, maybe everyone would raise their hand at some point. And you probably were part of a conversion process. And from a marketer standpoint, especially a B2B marketer standpoint, this is where the magic happens. Because you're inviting someone to unveil themselves. No longer are they just an anonymous human on your website. They're now a person with a first name, a last name, and whatever else you ask, whether it be email, some other information. Really, really valuable, because now the sales process can really begin, and it's a point where you can really make it customized as well. That's really the key to that strong experience. Because your customers don't want to feel like they're one in a crowd. They really want to experience that customer-centric approach where you're really customizing the experience to them, their goals, their needs, whatever they might want to experience. And so throughout that conversion path, you might ask a few additional questions like, what are you trying to achieve with X? What are some of the challenges you're focusing on? What are some of your goals in the future? Whatever it might be, an open question that you might use in the future to then customize their marketing sales process, which will really fall nicely when we start working closely with sales in the next step. So now that we've talked about the conversion process, let's get to revenue. Let's get to this stage. And at this point, if we want to make sure this is successful, the number one thing that marketing needs to do is supply sales leads. Any salesperson people in the room? No, we're just all marketers here, so we can just have our own little marketing party at this point. No sales here, we can say whatever we want. No, I'm just teasing. So at the end of the day, what's really essential is that marketing is supporting our sales team with leads. And ideally, these are extremely qualified leads, people who have opted in to learn more about our products and services. That's really the most amazing thing you can do for a salesperson, because now when he or she follows up with that lead, they can really focus on having a strong conversation. You handed that person on a platter. And so the other thing that can be done when you're passing on these leads is thinking about the context you want to include with it. So for example, if I give a salesperson a lead and I just give a first name, last name, maybe a phone number as well, what's that conversation going to be like? It's not going to be very personalized. It's not going to be really specific to the person. And it might be really jarring and something that the person doesn't really enjoy. Well, if I, as a marketer, can start collecting some data, some information, whether it be behavioral data that they're taking on your website based off of what they're doing, what they're researching, or additional information I might ask via different forms in the future, that's going to help that salesperson be more successful over time. And that's really important. So in terms of this marketing section, the whole vision that I'm trying to share with you, it really is a mindset shift. I'm asking you all to really include a customer-centric mindset when you're doing your marketing. And while this is a simple shift, I again really want to emphasize it doesn't mean it's easy. This might mean creating more content. This might mean getting really sophisticated about the type of content you're creating to make sure that you're really providing value. One way I like to think about this really simple, every time a customer or a prospective customer asks a question, sure, answer it on the phone or whatever the form that they're asking, but then also write a blog post, because most likely 10, 20, 100 other people have that question as well. So start thinking about how you can think of the best way to provide that value via your content, because that's going to support your marketing strategy moving forward. So now let's get to sales. We talked a lot about marketing's role in growth. I want to talk about sales role in growth and what that looks like. And I want to begin with a big, hairy, important statement that none of us will like. And that's the fact that the buyer has all the power. If either there are any sales reps who didn't raise their hand, or if you know sales reps and have ever discussed this is the most terrifying thing you can do to a salesperson, is tell them they're not in control. And that's really, really terrible, but it's true. It's true. The buyer is in control of their own sales process. So similarly to that stat we shared before, that 60% of the sales process begins even before talking to a rep, we need to lean into this fact and adapt. Lean into this fact and adapt. Unfortunately, at this day and age, most folks are using a legacy sales process as we share it, and it hasn't adapted to this. It hasn't adapted to the way that people naturally buy. And so sales teams that are suffering or maybe feeling the negative effects of not adapting are trying to figure out how they can use these tools that they've done. Maybe these are some of the tactics that your sales team uses today, and adapt and say, okay, how can I make them work better? And so how have they responded? Well, they say, let's just do it more. Let's just take these things that we use day to day and figure out how we can use them on more people, or do it faster so we can touch more people in any given amount of time and increase the probability that they will work. And so basically what we're doing is we're automating a lot of the stuff we've done day in and day out as a sales team, and we're not necessarily seeing the results we want because it's not the shift that we need. It's just automation. So it turns out, ladies and gentlemen, automating terrible marketing isn't going to be what's going to help us grow, help us improve. So what is it? And to all the Instagrammers, tweeters, all of the above, here's my shot for you all. It's the next slide. It's also the most beautiful one, and I did not design it. I can't take credit. But if there is any point that I want you all to take home, it's this. It's the golden rule. So think of the times that you have been sold to. Think of the times that it's been painful and you've hated it, it's been terrible, and you want to hang up the phone as soon as you can. Or you got that terrible email and you're thinking, why the heck are you even emailing me? How would you have wished that they reached out to you? There are probably even a few instances in which you were in the market for something, and someone from that company did reach out to you, and you didn't want to buy from them anyway because you hated their approach. Of course that's going to happen. So what would you have wished they had done? What would you have wished they had done? And think about that, embody that, and bring that to your sales process. Bring that idea to your sales process, because we need to focus on the buyer's actions, not ours. It's not about us, it's about them. And we need to start with that inbound interest as well. This is where marketing and sales coming together is so important. It's not just sales, buying lists, and cold calling people. It's about working with marketing to generate an actual list of individuals who have a strong probability of buying and having that great conversation. It's really having that strong handoff. And so with that, we created this inbound sales methodology that's a 4-step process that helps sales teams do that. And it begins with identifying who might be a great fit for our product or service by really listening to their behaviors, their actions that they've taken, or asking them. And then from there, having that connect only after they have indicated that they might want this, that there is some sort of interest. And then when you have that connect, then you begin to explore. The best salespeople are extremely inquisitive. They're not focused on convincing you what they think, but really learning about the person, getting as much information they can, so then they can advise and talk about whether or not your product or service actually could be a fit. Imagine that, a world where a salesperson says, actually, I don't think you should use this product. Imagine that. For sure, if you ever do, the amount of trust you have for that person will be so high that you may go back to him or her in the future when you do need it. Pretty amazing long game. And so, similarly, when we talk to contacts, really achieving that, we want to make sure that each person that's being sold to doesn't feel like one in a crowd, but really getting that handheld, customer-centric, white glove approach. How can that salesperson be so dedicated to that individual in the moment and really make it all about helping him or her? And then using the sales process to continue to get even more insights. Using that to understand the behavior, what they need, what they don't need, and how they can really help them, and tracking all of that. And so, my last thought that I want to do for y'all is give you a little specific example that is something that HubSpot's trying out right now that we think is pretty interesting. Results are not out yet. I wish I had data. As a very data-centric marketer, I wish I could say how this is performing yet. We don't have it quite yet, but I want to give you an idea. And it's really about using marketing and sales to shorten the sales cycle. The marketing and salesperson's dream. How can we get revenue faster? And the way that we're doing that is by shortening our conversion paths. So we talked about conversion a little bit a few minutes before. And what that is are the steps that someone might take in order to become a potential customer. And what we've been leaning into is seeing if we can shorten it to 3 short steps to get someone on the phone faster and only when it's going to be of value to the person. So how are we doing that? So We have a new free tool called Meetings. Pretty cool. I love being at HubSpot and being able to use all the new stuff we're launching all the time. It's really, really enjoyable to be able to do that. And so with Meetings, what we're doing, it's a cute little link that we can put in emails. You've probably seen other tools that do this as well. And we're both using it as a tool in which our salespeople can insert it to their one-to-one emails to invite someone to schedule a call only when he or she is ready. And we're putting that into our automated emails as well. So really interesting. And what that is doing is creating a great opportunity to just give the invitation and let it be in their court. It's recognizing that the buyer is in control, letting it be in their court, leaning on them to take this step when it's right for them, and then having it be A-okay if it's not. And that's been really effective and a great way to shorten our sales cycle, have marketing and sales work really well together, and really be effective overall. And so with that, I want to talk about the main goal. And this is a real email to one of our leaders in our Dublin office, Christian. Can you read it? I want you guys to read it. No, you can't read it. I will summarize it for you. And the summary is, it's from someone who recently purchased HubSpot, who asked for the email address of the rep's boss, not to complain, not to, say whatever he needs to say and get off his chest, but to compliment the sales rep, because he was so impressed at how focused it was on him, how focused it was on providing what he needed, and just really wanted to give value. That was his number one. You could just tell that really at the end of the day it was all about providing that value. So just imagine a world where all of us in this room have a sales process so strong that people are sending emails back to your management saying how much they like the sales process. If that's happening, sure, it's nice to get that email feeling warm and fuzzy inside, but imagine what your revenue is doing as well. Imagine what your growth is doing. So use this to aspire to think about your marketing and sales process. Is it being customer-centric? And when it is, you'll most likely achieve the growth that you want as well. Thank you. Looks like we have about 5 minutes for questions, so I'm happy to answer whatever you have.
Anyone?
No? Oh, yes.
Been a follower of HubSpot for years, reading your blog, so thank you very, very much for all the insight. Really, really great stuff. How is HubSpot adjusting to the whole social media world? Because the crux of what HubSpot always was driving traffic to the website to grab emails. That's not as powerful as it used to be. So,
great question. We're doing it by expanding how we're sharing our content. And today how that exists is we have our internal blogging team, if you will, who is our folks writing on blog.hubspot.com, all focused on generating traffic to the website. And then we have two, we call it off-site properties, if you will, that's what we call it, on Medium and our podcast. And so we're recognizing that it's not all about bringing people to you, it's the way people are naturally going to research products, and recognizing that and just making sure we're being active contributors there and guiding them back to HubSpot when and if it makes sense. So far it's working. Yes?
What do you see as the B2B buyers journey on mobile devices going in the future?
Great question. So we did a really cool experiment, which was if we have our forms on mobile only ask for first name and email, can we still, in the buyer's journey, get the information we need later to confirm that they'll be, we can then pass on to sales and confirm there could be a lead? Knowing that with only first name and email, we can't do anything from a sales handoff standpoint. We're going to have to trust that it comes later. But will the volume of leads in that case be better off for it? We found absolutely. It's really, really interesting that by delaying when we ask that information and understanding what people are willing to do and not do on mobile, by really leaning into that, eventually we'd be able to get that information later in order to help. So it's really understanding how do different users use those channels, really understanding it, and then adapting in that way. So great question. Yes, in the middle.